Although, if you remember, not that long ago, maybe start of the year or end of last year, I did a video review on Days Gone, and it's one of my favourite video games ever. Big epic storyline, genuine story of friendship and survival with the kind of horror element. And I absolutely think this game blew The Last of Us 2 out of the water. I mean, Last of Us 2 was diabolically awful. And it was always interesting how critics framed the games. I always remember articles on Days Gone talking about lack of representation for women, toxic masculinity, and many, many other buzzwords that float around the internet that have lost all meaning thanks to these morons. Journos were not kind to this game. And do I agree the game is a bit too long in places? Yes, it's a very long game. But I think in an age where people willingly pay £75 for a 4-hour one-player campaign, getting your money's worth out of a game is good, I suppose. But it was always interesting watching the critics react and watching how critics reacted to The Last of Us Part 2. A lot of critics saying it was a flawed game, but, strong women representation, all of this stuff, feminism. It was really interesting to see the difference. Days Gone is a story of brotherhood, of lost love, of survival, and it paints this brilliant and very brutal picture of a post-apocalyptic United States. Now, what I will say on this one is that the person that created the game has come out and said woke critics didn't help the game. And I agree with that statement 100%. The studio have rebutted and distanced themselves and said the opinion of so-and-so does not match the opinions of us, and, the typical legal thing. But honestly, the way gaming journalism is right now, it's not really about the game, it's about everything but the game. And you can have a weak story with great gameplay, and a great story with weak gameplay, and you can have everything in between. Yes, the story of this game has probably been done 1,000 times, but actually the game was good, and great cast of characters. And I felt like, at the time, no one really talked about the game. They were talking about everything but the game. And I do agree with the guy behind this thing, that critics did not give this game a chance because, buzzwords, more buzzwords and more buzzwords. As someone that's played Days Gone through 3 or 4 times since it came out, I own the art book, I have the special edition. It's a spectacular and ambitious piece of work that was very much pushed aside by critics for the god-awful Days Gone, Last of Us 2, which not only destroyed its characters, but completely changed the narrative of the game, and retconned events that happened within the game of the Part 1. It's why I haven't bothered with Days Gone Part 1 Remaster, because it's the same game with a slightly higher resolution and some new textiles. That's what it is. Video game critics are pointless, and there are countless websites of video game critics that cry about representation and diversity, that cry about video games not being this, not being that, not having enough this in it, but they don't talk about the game. And there's a whole, one of the big ones, every element of a video game is problematic. How dare a game have men in it? How dare a game be historically accurate? How dare a game have a cyberpunk aesthetic because, air quotes, Orientalism? Do you not know cyberpunk? The whole thing is absurd, and I genuinely believe that critics just didn't give this game a chance because it was the story of 2 men. 2 best friends. Brothers in arms, in a hellish situation, forced to survive and forced to deal with the world around them, forced to deal with everything that's happening in a world that could destroy them. Brilliantly written, great dialogue, great story, great characterization, great gameplay. This game ticked all the boxes, but critics ignored it because, buzzwords. I think this is a case that gaming journalists have become this kind of gatekeeper to gaming, which I absolutely hate. And I firmly believe that critics as a whole shouldn't matter, and I think people listen to them too much. As a big Nintendo fan, one of the big Nintendo sites are extremely biased and are completely unwilling to criticize anything. Every game is amazing as long as it's first-party Nintendo, rather than a third-party game, which I find fascinating. And I've seen this pattern many times with many games, and people retroactively going back to older games and saying, well, this has happened, that's happened, and this was problematic. I really hate that word. It's a weasel word. It's a get-out clause. You don't actually have to have an opinion. You can say problematic and everyone claps. It's that word. I do feel like people didn't give this game a fair chance. Critics didn't give this game a fair chance. And it was very much pushed aside, and it's a real shame that we'll never get a continuation of the story. This epic, big story that left you on a cliffhanger that we'll never get an answer to. So what I'm going to say is go out there, play Days Gone, enjoy the game, and tell me what you think of Days Gone in the comments.